Thank you, Dato' Ahmad Speaker. Thank you for the honor and the opportunity to debate Yang Amat Berhormat, the Chief Minister's address at this second meeting of the fourth session of the 18th Sarawak State Legislative Assembly. I support and congratulate Yang Amat Berhormat, the Chief Minister, for his articulate budget speech and his success in getting a 9.891 billion positive budget for the second year running in the history of Sarawak, where 67% of the budget will go into development. This is in contrast to Malaysia's deficit budget, where only 18% goes into development and 80% goes into operating expenditure. Dato' Ahmad Speaker, Pakatan Harapan has governed for 18 months, but Sarawakians continue to suffer from the empty promises before the 14th general election. Many Sarawakians are despairing and losing hope in the Pakatan Harapan government. The country's GDP has dropped from 4.7 to 4.4 since the election. The worsening economy has forced many people to take on more than one job to survive. To add to woes, our education system is failing our students. Racial harmony is wavering on the teenage, and extremism issues are on the rise. Pakatan Harapan has been given its chance to deliver, but has failed miserably. The country is more divided than ever. On the other hand, GPS has not only maintained a double-digit positive budget, but more importantly, it has been able to maintain peace and harmony in Sarawak. We must not take things for granted, however, lest Malaya comes over to trample us and divide us. MPKK is a clear example, and MPKK is here to capture Sarawak, as mentioned by our Federal Finance Minister. Sabah is another example. Sabah is ruled by the Pakatan Harapan government. Why has Sabah not been given 30% of the seats in Parliament, as well as 30% of the country's development grants, as promised by the Minister of Finance before GE14? So do you all think that Pakatan Harapan is going to take care of Sarawak if Sarawak comes under Pakatan Harapan? We just have to look at Sabah now to know the answer. Was Pakatan Harapan right in abolishing GST? Is not SST a burden to the rakyat too? Why are our people suffering from the poor economy today? It is time for Pakatan Harapan to take a look at the way the country has been managed in the past 18 months. First, all members of the Board of Management of Petronas resigned. A completely new set of board members were appointed by our new Prime Minister. Next, Petronas forked out 30 billion of special dividend to the new Pakatan Harapan government immediately after the election was won in 2018. Today, Petronas has forked out 80 billion. And how much did we, Sarawak, receive out of this amount? Kosong. Instead of reducing the country's debt as claimed by GE14, before GE14, the country's debt has increased from 705 billion to 800 billion today. We are also looking at losing 6.84 billion in revenue annually from oil palm, and 600,000 smallholders, oil palm smallholders, will suffer if India prefers to purchase from Indonesia. Our Prime Minister is supposed to create diplomatic relationships and bring investments into the country. However, investors have moved away from Malaysia because of increasingly unfair and racial policies propagated by Malaya. Dato' Amar Speaker, where are our rights as enshrined in MA 63 in such unfair dealings as Petroleum Development Act 74, PDA 74, and the Territorial Sea Act 2012, which was slapped on us by Malaya for the sole benefit of Malaya? In the spirit of the Malaysian Agreement 1963 and the Federal Constitution, all land and all resources in Sarawak belongs entirely to Sarawak, and 1/3 of the 222 parliamentary seats should be allocated to Sarawak and Sabah. Now that the next state election is coming up, more rosy promises have been pledged by DAP Sarawak even before the promises of GE14 have been fulfilled. Where does Pakatan Harapan get off on thinking that they will be able to meet these newer and rosier promises for the 2021 state election when they have not even yet delivered on their old GE14 promises made in 2018? Honorable Dato' Amar Speaker, Sarawak is practically a colony of Malaya, a blatant disregard for and against the wishes and intent of the spirit of MA 63. How else can we explain the selfish siphoning of 15 billion in net oil earnings and 45 billion in gross gas earnings annually from Sarawak for the continuing expansion of Malaya, with only 5% being returned to Sarawak? Our honorable member Barubian is not here, but I would like to say, if he is here, that Malaya do not need any more bridges. All their rivers have been connected with bridges. And today, they are building elevated highways, and not just one-story elevated highways, but three-story elevated highways. In Sarawak, we need all these bridges, we need all these roads. Even our simple Pen-Borneo highway is not completed. And all the money that has been drained, that I just mentioned, how can our YB Baru says that the government in Malaya has been fair to Sarawak? Completely unfair. And after winning GE14 and during the 73rd United Nations General Assembly in New York, our Prime Minister reported that Sabah and Sarawak do not want independence, only autonomy. I challenge our Prime Minister to give us a referendum to determine whether Sarawakians want independence or not. Let the people of Sarawak decide. We Sarawakians are fully supportive of our Chief Minister in our determination to regain control over our oil and gas resources and to pursue the return of our rights as enshrined under MA 63. Enough is enough. 56 years of exploitation and proliferation by Malaya of our oil and gas resources must stop now. A notice of assessment has been issued to Petronas for the payment of 5% sales tax due to Sarawak. Failing the payment of this sales tax from Petronas to the state government, we shall do the right thing and let the law take its own course. I salute our Chief Minister for his leadership and his fighting spirit. I hope the federal government will put its money where its mouth is. The Prime Minister has harped on about following the rule of law often enough, especially when he is on the international podium. If the Prime Minister decrees that the rule of law must be adhered to strictly, why is Petronas, a company whose accounts are only privy to the Prime Minister's eyes, the only oil company that is not paying the 5% sales tax to Sarawak? Big question mark here. Dr. Ahmad Speaker, Dr. Deputy Speaker, the recent budget delivered by the Minister of Finance is a disappointing 4.4 billion for Sarawak out of 56 billion. How can Sarawak ever be on par with Malaya in terms of infrastructure development when Malaya takes billions of our oil and gas and allocate back a mere 7.8% of the country's development expenditure? When will Pakatan Harapan honor, respect, and return all rights to Sarawak as enshrined under MA 63? Member for Kota Sentosa, member for Pending, member for Palawan. Where are your promises to return 20% of oil royalty to Sarawak and 50% of all taxes collected? How about the return of our autonomy on education and health? With the dismal economic performance of this day, the multitude of broken promises of the new Pakatan Harapan government, the ever-increasing racial and religious episodes in Malaya's political landscape, and the continued plunder of Sarawak's oil and gas resources, and the abuse of MA 63. It is no wonder why many Sarawakians do not see any logic or reason as to why our fair land Sarawak should want to remain in Malaysia. Dato' Deputy Speaker, before GE14, the Minister of Finance promised to support TAR University. After GE14, he has not only gone back on his words of supporting TAR University, he has even resorted to reducing subsidies for TAR University from 30 billion to a ridiculous figure of 1 billion, affecting students throughout Malaysia, including many from Sarawak. In contrast with this, our CM Abang Jo, who has pledged 8 million to assist Chinese independent schools in Sarawak in 2019. Sarawak has suffered the same fate as well under the Minister of Finance. Initially, Sarawak offered to lend 1 billion to MOF for the repair of more than 1,000 dilapidated schools, but the offer was rejected. Then MOF asked Sarawak to return 350 million owed to the federal first, which our Chief Minister did without delay. However, to this day, there is still no sign of the 1 billion to repair dilapidated schools in Sarawak. And Sarawak now has to lend the federal government 1 billion. The 2020 federal budget states that 783 million is allocated for dilapidated schools for the entire country. To date, only 100 million is actually going to dilapidated schools in Sarawak, or have we been duped into returning 350 million only to get 100 million back for our dilapidated schools? In contrast, Dato' Deputy Speaker, the Sarawak government under our Honourable Chief Minister is spending 30 million to train nearly 3,000 teachers and textbooks printing to prepare for the reintroduction of maths and science in English next year. I congratulate our Chief Minister for building and setting up 5 international schools in Kuching, 1 in Cebu, Miri, and Bintulu. The schools will cater for Form 1 students to prepare them for both the International General Certificate of Secondary Education and Sijil Pelajaran Malaysia. Those best students will be selected to enter these schools where English will be the language of instruction. We applaud our Honorable Chief Minister for his far-sightedness in pursuing the best in educating our youths in Sarawak. Where is the promise by DAP and the Pakatan Harapan government to return our autonomy on education and health to Sarawak? Unconditionally as well, as bragged by our member for Kota Sentosa in this very dune. Dato' Deputy Speaker, we cannot depend on the ridiculous policies of the present Minister of Education, who prioritizes black shoes, swimming lessons, breakfast for all children in all schools for the whole nation, and the art of cut instead of pursuing positive actions like information communication technology, as stated by Tan Sri Rafida Aziz. At least there's still somebody sensible. Dato' Deputy Speaker, it is with great disappointment that our Prime Minister has reiterated once again in the press, Star July 20th, 2019, his call to his party members to fight for only one race and one religion. Since becoming the Prime Minister, he has told PAS and UMNO to stop playing racial and religious issues, but he is doing so himself. The Prime Minister should realize that not only one race voted for him during GE14. Now that the battle has been won, it appears that the people of the minority races have been conveniently chucked aside. The last thing the Prime Minister should do is to encourage or even perceive to be encouraging discrimination in any shape or form. Pitting one race against another in a multiracial country can only serve to drive a wedge even further between the people in multicultural Malaysia. How can we build this country in such a divisive and non-inclusive environment? The Prime Minister himself has said in his New York speech at the 73rd United Nations General Assembly that Malaysians want a new Malaysia that upholds the principles of fairness, good governance, integrity, and the rule of law. They want a Malaysia that is a friend to all, an enemy of none. A Malaysia that remains neutral and non-aligned. A Malaysia that detests and abhors wars and violence. They also want a Malaysia that will speak its mind on what is right and wrong, without fear or favor. A new Malaysia that believes in cooperation based on mutual respect for mutual gain. The new Malaysia that offers a partnership based on our philosophy of prosper thy neighbor. Now, where is that new Malaysia? Remember, charity starts at home. The Prime Minister would do well to hit his own high-sounding advice right at home by being a friend to all people, an enemy of none, regardless of race and religion, in his own country. Dato' Deputy Speaker, in Sarawak, however, under the GPS government, we have the good fortune to be able to live in peace and harmony among our different races. Our Chief Minister, Abang Jo, is continuing with the legacy of our beloved Tok Nan in helping all races in Sarawak. He shows by example the importance of tolerance and acceptance among all races, and he is working very hard under a very challenging circumstances to get back what belongs to us under MA 63. I appeal to all Sarawakians to support our CM. Let us be reminded that CM Abang Jo has allocated 30 million to Uni4 this year for the construction of places of worship for other religions. We should not let race and religion divide us. We should find peace, harmony, and strength in our shared diversity. Dato' Deputy Speaker, on tourism, Palawan Municipal Council MPP has signed friendship cities with Yantai, Huangshi, Linyi of China, as well as Kim Sangam of Korea. And recently, Sarawak has signed friendship cities with Shantung Province in China, led by our Minister for Local Government. I wish to appeal to our Sarawak government to consider giving special tourism passes for those coming to stay in Sarawak for 6 months or more to evade the cold during the winter months in their own country.
You got 1 minute to conclude.
Thank you,
Sentosa.
Deputy Speaker. This is what I have gathered from my visits to these cities, and this proposal will certainly boost our tourism industry in Sarawak. Dato' Deputy Speaker, I congratulate the appointment of our 2 new mayors in Kuching recently, and I hope to see DBKU, MBKS, MPP, as well as MPKS in Samarahan, having a closer cooperation in the future to serve Greater Kuching people better. And this Greater Kuching is in the likes of Greater London and Greater Tokyo. With that, I conclude. GPS, Sarawak first. Thank you, Dato' Deputy Speaker.